Hello and welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Scint.
I'm Axion.
And we are continuing our playthrough of Final Fantasy V and discussion of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. So, last time we were talking about people who latch themselves on like a social parasite to anyone who can give them a little bit of social climber ability, and usually, make themselves a horrible reputation in the process. We're still talking about rule breakers today, but an entirely different kind. While we were talking before about, the Starscream that nobody actually wants to be around, today we're talking about just those lovable rogues that you just can't get enough of. Yes, they've started another fire in the chemistry lab and put fireworks in the middle of it, so it was a health hazard to everyone around, but dang it, they were just so charming while they did it. You can probably guess who inspired this.
Hermione!
Yes, absolutely Hermione, who would rather die than be expelled, and does not want to break any rules. She gets better later. But, yes, we actually have two sets of lovable rogues that we need to talk about for this one. Who would you want to talk about first?
We should probably start with the ones that, by this point in the story, everyone is more familiar with. The Weasley brothers.
Specifically the Weasley Twins, because there are a lot more Weasley brothers than there are troublemakers. Because, can you imagine Percy's reaction to being lumped in with that?
Yes, and it amuses me.
Of course it does. Percy is going to go spare. But yes, Fred and George were established basically from the minute we met them as being ready and willing to rib everyone around them, but everybody seems to like them. They are the consummate class clowns, natural-born pranksters, and apparently still pretty good at their classes, despite that. Like, they're very smart, but they also want to just mess around and have fun, which, when you're working with magic, tends to be a little bit more fraught.
Just a tad.
So, yeah, Fred and George, basically everybody knows about them at school. They have a very solid reputation as being pranksters. All the teachers are aware of it. Filch is definitely aware from it, and they've actually gotten in trouble with Filch multiple times. I think when they talked to Harry about the Marauders map in this book, they actually can't remember specifically what they were called in for. I would have to check.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they wouldn't remember, because they've done so much. I am guessing she stepped away to actually get the book.
Oh no, they do remember. Well, when we were in our first year, Harry, young, carefree, innocent, more innocent than we are now, we let off a dung bomb in the corridor and it upset Filch for some reason, so he hauled us off to the office and started threatening us with the usual detention, disembowelment, and we couldn't help noticing a drawer in one of his filing cabinets marked confiscated and highly dangerous. Oh, what would you have done? We dropped another dung bomb, I opened the drawer and grabbed the map. So, they do remember. Very well. And enough detail to say, now here's what we did, and here's how we also got this other thing while we did more trouble.
As you do.
At least if you're Fred and George. Double down is apparently the way to go, which we will see later.
This does not surprise me at this point.
But, yeah, Fred and George are, if they really wanted to be, they could be holy terrors. They could cause untold amounts of damage, untold amounts of harm, but aside from the whole let's traumatize our toddler brother while we are also basically toddlers with a permanent arachnophobia incident, they're mostly harmless. They just do these things because they're bored, and none of their pranks really seem to do any lasting damage to people. It's just, haha, stink bomb, haha, we did this thing. This is silly. And they're just goofing around for the heck of it. They do not seem to be out to legitimately cause any harm. And I'm willing to give a pass to the teddy bear incident because, having worked in schools, most children tend toward the not fully morally trained yet end of the spectrum, and they got better.
Yep. It's an expectation that when kids are young, they're going to cause some mischief. And while...
it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing they did to Ron, but, like...
Yeah.
As kids grow up, they tend to learn a little bit more of, empathy and a sense of right and wrong, and I have no doubt that Molly Weasley gave them a very, very clear come-to-Jesus moment when she saw what they'd done, because she strikes me as the kind of parent who would not let that sort of thing go unanswered. So I am willing to write that off as it's over, it's done with, and they got better.
Yep. And more to the point, we never see Fred and George do something out of malice. It's always out of joking. It's always out of just for a bit of fun. They like to mess with the authority, with figures of authority, and kind of punch up, but they almost never punch down, which is really good.
So, yeah, they are very, very popular. Nobody really has much to say against them, except, they're Weasleys and they're poor, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we know, Malfoy, go away. No one likes you. I know, several thousand fanfic authors will disagree with me on that point. I have been around the internet. So, we have, on the one hand, the Weasley Twins. On the other hand, we have the Marauders, who have a sufficiently edgy nickname to tell me that they would have been posting all of the memes on Reddit if they were around today.
Oh, they would totally have been doing some actual serious trolling if they had been in a more modern setting.
Oh, they still did troll. You'll see in a later book what the Marauders map is enchanted to do if somebody who doesn't have the password gets to it. But that's not in this book.
No, it is in this book.
Oh, okay. I might be mixing it up with...
Yeah. Snape finds it on Harry and demands to know what it is, and...
I was mixing it up with the fourth book. I thought that was when Moody found it. Okay, that's right.
Nope. It's when Snape... It might do something else in the fourth book, but in the third book, it just insults Snape a lot. This
is what I get for slowly rereading the series while still having way too much knowledge of the series in my head, and all the books run together. I will get my stuff together for book 4 by the time we move on to those, though. My bad.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't reread book 4 yet, so it might well do something different there. But in this book, all it does is call Snape some names. And
yeah, basically. That's what I was thinking of the Snape incident. I thought he found it later.
Yeah, and Dumbledore just writes the whole thing off as it's clearly a joke thing enchanted to insult anybody who opens it the wrong way. Chilled out, Snape, it's not a big deal. Or maybe it was Lupin that said not Dumbledore.
I think it would have had to be Dumbledore at that point because Snape hates Lupin, and we know it's because they went to school together and never got along. So I will double check and see if I can find the passage because I want to be sure on that. But yeah, tell me about the Marauders while I look for the page.
Alright, so what we know about the Marauders from our experience with them is that there was I cannot remember his name for some reason. Pettigrew. Pettigrew was kind of a hanger-on for the group and followed the others around because he idolized them. But the others were consummate pranksters.
Okay, found it. You were correct. It was Lupin. I was surprised that Snape actually bought the whole Zonko story, given that, he never has shown any respect for Lupin in any interaction we've seen with them. But yes, it was Lupin. He was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can buy something like this in Zonko's, and then Ron comes in right on cue. It's like, yep, I bought it in Hogsmeade ages ago and gave it to him.
But yeah, the other three were, when they weren't, dealing with Lupin being a werewolf. Basically, the Weasley Twins on steroids. They were looking for any opportunity to make trouble. They flagrantly broke several of the rules of not just Hogwarts, but of Wizarding Society in general, being unregistered animagi, sneaking out of the school on regular occasions,
They're who Fred and George want to be when they grow up.
which they pretty much straight up say when they give
If
Harry
only
the
they
nap.
knew. Yeah, if only they knew.
So
I honestly wonder how the Weasley twins would have reacted to learn that they learned defense against the dark arts from Moody.
I imagine they would be significantly impressed.
But, yeah. Rereading that scene, you really get the impression that Snape knew full well who the Marauders were, with suggesting that Harry got it directly from the manufacturers and calling Lupin out, of all people, to ask about it.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
right there with you.
Yep.
I cannot see any way that Snape did not know exactly what was going on, and was incredibly frustrated by the fact that he couldn't get Lupin to actually admit it in public, or at least in front of Harry, rather, and that he didn't have any evidence other than his own memory.
Yep. And how perfectly tailored toward him the insults were. How did an idiot like that become professor? Wash his hair the slime ball. It's like, okay, yeah, that is very, very personalized, and you could honestly see why Snape might have had legitimate concern saying, I think this is cursed with dark magic, as his excuse for why he's so angry about it, when it's just like, no, I know you made this to insult me, explain how he got it. And Lupin's like, I don't know how he got it. And Harry is not helpful at all because he's going to get Fred and George in trouble. So it's just a messy situation all around with that one.
Yep.
But one that is ultimately harmless. Because, again, all it is words on a page that don't mean anything, and yeah.
The danger, quote-unquote, of the Marauders map is more in the knowledge it provides to someone who does know how to access it, and what that knowledge and capability might inspire them to do. In this particular case, sneaking out of the castle in dangerous manners and during a time where there's a literal serial killer on the loose.
Yep, who has, I believe at that point in the book, already gotten into the castle and caused a mass panic once.
I'm trying to get up enough money to buy better equipment. That's why I keep running around in circles here.
I mean, I'm just used to you grinding at this point, so I wasn't sure.
That's fair. No, yeah, there is a blue magic spell I wouldn't mind to pick up while I'm here, but it's not a big deal if I don't. I mainly just need better gear because my weapons are very out of date.
Yeah. Though this does kind of make you wonder how well these characters are regarded by anyone outside of their immediate circle, because what makes a lovable rogue lovable tends to be that we get a sympathetic perspective to them.
Right. We do know to Snape, he considers them a menace. A menace to society! Get me pictures of Spider-Man!
Aragog has entered the chat.
I'm sorry, as soon as I said that, Jonah Jameson immediately jumped into my head, so I had to.
Of course you did. So yeah, like, we know the Weasleys are well-liked, but we know that from the perspective of the Gryffindor students. We don't know how they're seen in the rest of the school, though I think everybody but Slytherin seems to see them as, at least, you know, mostly positive, because Slytherin tends to be off in its own little bubble. At least narratively speaking. We don't really get much in the way of nuance in terms of that house. It's kind of a monolith, at least early on in the series. So, yeah, we know that they're at least they're regarded well for a lot of the school. But we don't know about the Marauders. We know that James Potter's characterization tends to shift a fair bit over the story. I think because Rowling was still figuring out what she wanted to do with them, because, remember, first book, Hagrid mentions that Lily and James were head boy and girl. By this book, we've learned that, no, James was a troublemaker, and they probably would not have let him anywhere near head boy, or prefect for that matter. So, it's inconsistent to, as we know, what they were thought of, let alone the rest of the group. So we know that they were seen as, at least most of them were seen as, bright students prone to getting in trouble. Though I think Lupin was seen as, not as prone to getting in trouble, but he was friends with them, so might have been the mediating influence as far as the teachers were aware.
On the other hand, he was also known to be a werewolf, and that comes with its own problems.
Yeah, which probably was looked at like, yeah, he's the mediating influence because he knows he has to toe the line and doesn't want to get in trouble by proxy with them. So
Right.
That could be something you'd see too. And Wormtail was just kind of there. So we kind of get I kind of get the impression that a lot of the positive remembrance of them is partly don't speak ill of the dead, at least as far as James Potter goes.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And because we know Snape, for example, sees them as awful. Like, he doesn't like the Weasley Twins, which could just be because, to be fair, they are causing problems, and it is kind of annoying to deal with. But he also tends to play a very hard favorite to Slytherin, and the fact that they might be showing up Slytherins would be a threat to his ego, so on and so forth. Snape already has an ulterior motive to seeing them negatively, because we're seeing this through the eyes of Harry, who doesn't like Snape either. But we also know that Snape had a personal, visceral dislike of the Marauders from school, and, well, for honestly valid reasons, as we discover as the series goes on. Harry's dad was not the saint he's been led to believe he is, but
Right.
Harry's never gotten to know him. All he gets is stories from, like, Dumbledore and Hagrid who liked him. So of course they're not going to paint him in a bad light. So perspective is really important to pulling off a lovable rogue. If you can't make the audience care about them and want to see them succeed, if you can't make the audience look past they are causing active harm or something, or, or make them harmless like the Weasley Twins, it's going to be a hard sell.
Mm-hmm.
Because you remember why Snape doesn't like them.
Something about them getting into a situation where they put Snape in danger and then they had to save his life or something like that. I don't remember the full details.
They were going to tell him how to get into the Shrieking Shack during the full moon, and he thought Lupin was in on the joke. And then, I don't remember who, I think it was James, changed his mind at the last minute to tell him to stop him from going and getting bitten by a werewolf. So, remember we talked about with how bad the stigma for lycanthropy is in the Harry Potter world?
Mm-hmm.
That is a very, very valid reason to have a lifelong hatred of these people. You tried to kill me, or basically curse me for the rest of my life. And you got away with it, and never saw any sort of repercussions for it.
And as far as we know, never any apology.
But, yeah. As much as Snape is painted as an unsympathetic jerk, he has a very, very valid reason there to not see this crew as just, a bunch of lovable rogues. No, they actively... That was an attempted murder.
Yep.
If this was a Muggle school, all y'all would be expelled, except maybe Lupin, and I'm not sure if they'd give him the pass for not knowing. Because the circumstance would be very, very damning for him. Like, expelled is the light end. Criminal charges would have been brought in, but Hogwarts doesn't really care about that, apparently.
Yeah. That I could definitely see.
So yeah, imagine hearing this story from Snape's perspective of, oh hey, one of the guys who tried to kill you when you were in high school is out of jail now. Oh hey, one of the guys who tried to kill you when you were in high school is your coworker now. Oh, hey, one of the guys who tried to kill you in high school, his son's in your class and already doesn't like you. Not that you're really giving much of an impression, but it's like, shifting your narrator can really, really change how your characters are received.
Yep. There was a sort of webcomic. This is kind of a silly way to put this, but it does kind of get the impression across. There was a little stick figure webcomic that came out that was like regular Slytherin girl or something like that. I can't remember the actual title. And it was literally just about a regular Slytherin girl who had no real connection to all of the crazy stuff that kept happening in the middle of Harry Potter's plot.
Ah yes, my life is a background Slytherin.
And, and it is literally just... I am just trying to do my schoolwork, I want to succeed, I want to be recognized as a capable witch, all of that stuff, and I'm constantly having to deal with all of the crazy stuff happening because of Voldemort, and all of the drama between Harry Potter and Malfoy, and I don't want to deal with all this. I have more important things. I want to pass my finals. I want to study. I want to get a good job so I can achieve my ambitions. I'm in Slytherin after all. But I have no interest in joining up with Wizard Hitler. I have no interest in playing hero with Harry Potter or pranking the school with the Weasley Twins. I just want to do my friggin' schoolwork.
Yep, yeah, she's just kind of there while random stuff is going on.
Puppy agrees, too, that this is very frustrating and distracting from the process of school and education.
But, yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. Like, Lovable Rogues, I think, can be very tricky to pull off. We're going to go back to Star Wars again because, well, I mean, it does a lot of very basic archetypes very consistently. Han Solo. Han Solo doesn't care about the Empire, or any wars, or any resistance. He wants to get his money. But you like him because the story is framed around making him likable.
Yep, and because
it would be
his
very,
help
very easy.
Is necessary to complete the plot.
Yeah. It helps that he's played by a decently charismatic actor. If you had someone who couldn't pull off delivering these lines with haha kind of a rakish wink, it wouldn't work. Imagine trying to sell Gilderoy Lockhart as Han Solo. It's a tricky line to walk because I'm sure Lockhart branded himself as very much a Han Solo type of, I will go and do these adventurous things, but my hair's never going to get messed up. But since we saw him from the perspective of the students, which is like, this man is so arrogant he can't function without 3 selfies before selfies are invented, he would not be able to be sold very well to a young audience as a lovable rogue. He was not framed in that light. I imagine if you put his exploits on the same list as anybody else we've mentioned, he wouldn't stand out that far of like, I use magic to get to disrupt this to the status quo and do things the way I want to do them, and it's all fine. It's like, no, you're causing active harm and you're too arrogant for us to buy this act.
Huh, I guess that one's not a blue magic spell in this game.
If you say so. I don't know much about blue magic. I've never really used it.
That's okay. But yeah. Get down to the point of it is, it really depends on their perspective, and a lot of that is really just, am I benefiting from the silly things that the lovable rogue does, or are they causing me frustrations and maybe not being as helpful as they like to advertise?
But they're still serving a valuable story role because you need to have characters who are willing to go outside of the rules sometimes to progress the story. Because if Hermione was calling the shots, we would never actually deviate from our scheduled study times until later in the series when she starts getting really, really focused.
Yep, but really, that's just her changing her
Rules.
what rule she wants to follow from I'm going to follow the rule of whatever the school says to I'm going to follow the rule of what is right to do.
Yep. Which we'll get into more in later books. I keep saying that, but there's a lot of books we gotta talk about. But yeah, I'm not sure what else there is to say with regard to the Lovable Rogue, unless we have something else that I've missed.
No, I think we've kind of run this one dry. I mean, we've been on it for almost half an hour, and we've discussed both groups and all of the problems that they cause, as well as all of the help they do and the way they forward the plot. But I think there's not really much more to add without getting into stuff that happens in later books.
Alright, in that case, I will see you next time. Bye!
Later, folks!